Ladies and gentlemen, Pike statue has been torn down, and with that, I say this: um, oh yeah, what you do for yourself dies with you and is dead, but what you do for others, remains and you become immortal. That was a quote by Albert Pike. And with that being said, the Albert Pike statue, who to me, for various reasons, was a very important person, was basically, I would say, Luciferian, and had he lived today, he would have probably considered himself a humanist, um, philosopher, social thinker, occultist, Kabbalist, um, as I said, philosopher and poet, and I believe even playwright. And much like Aleister Crowley and Benjamin Franklin and a number of other people, he was a Renaissance man and basically a jack of all trades. So, with that being said, he was a very intelligent person, and yes, he was also a Confederate general. Now, I'm not defending that part of this, but he was a man of his times. That was 200 to 300 years ago, and he is different from many of these Southern statues, Robbie E. Lee, and including even Silent Sam, who, by the way, was not even a real person. These statues represented racism. I don't think, in spite of any racist beliefs the man might have indeed had, as he was a man of his time, he himself did not represent racism, and he did not come to represent racism or bigotry really to anyone. And I don't feel right about the collapsing of the statue, and I feel almost as if though this is biting the hand that feeds in the worst way, and this is a mockery of humanist ideals and values, and these same humanist and progressive ideals and values that has championed and advanced Black Lives Matters and the larger civil rights movement. And I feel like this is almost an insult to us. And I have myself, by the way, come up with a number of, or I will be coming up rather, a number of I plan on at least a number of Christian statues and church fathers, and as well as probably even Jewish and Islamic leaders and so forth, who, by the way, might have had racist statements or had slave or promoted slavery or even had slaves. This was the case with much of the Roman, or not Roman, but Ottoman Empire, rather the Ottoman Empire, and a number of other people in Cross in the Old Testament, perhaps some Old Testament prophets. I might be even listing, I will be listing popes, bishops, various priests, nuns with racist beliefs, and not to mention, let's not mention the homophobic beliefs that are so common, especially among many Christian leaders that were anti LGBTQ. Perhaps they would like to know about this, and we want a list of those leaders now. Because it seems you tore my statue down, I think it's only fit now that I return the favor and tear one of yours down. But nevertheless, Albert Pike was not he might have been a racist. Again, we're talking the 1800s here, but he was a man very much of his time, and also, I want to say, oh yeah, what was it? Oh yeah, here's what it was. This is what I want to say. He was a person accused of many things. They tried to accuse him of founding the Ku Klux Klan. Of course, we know that isn't correct. They wanted to say he wrote the rituals because he had history and extensive knowledge and history of occult practice and rituals and about Klansmen, about things that could suit the Klan rituals. They tried to say that he wanted three world wars. That has never been proven, and were all largely lies made up by Christians. And at that time, probably largely not only Republicans but social democrats or Southern Democrats, rather, for various reasons, to defame the man who was a very controversial figure, even in his time, and left a remarkable life and was one hell of a figure. He and I don't like the man, but Andrew Breitbart would have said a rugged individualist, and he blazed the path forward, as did many women of that time, and so forth, and he paved the way forward. And I look back at my last video while this was happening, I believe, about talking about and bitching about a fucking video about wrestling. And that, if you want an example of how you can waste your life and the time God has given you, or God gives to you, if there is to be even one, whether he or her or whatever gives you life, and there is a God, in fact, then that was a great example. I'm sitting here bitching about wrestling and some woman barking like a dog 20 years ago, and or whatever else. And meanwhile, they're doing this, and this was an insult, and this was a mockery of my values as a person, I believe, and what I know, because what I know of Albert Pike was he was a very intelligent man. And this was horseshit and bullshit. And again, I have supported the collapsing and the toppling of most every one of these videos. And no, I didn't think it would come back to blow up in my face like this, or that it would be Albert Pike's statue. I had never, because that thought, I don't believe, had ever even occurred to me. And keep in mind, by the way, the person and the man who started, if he even existed, because some people think he was largely a mythological archetype or some shit of that nature. The same as Jesus, because people argue that his name is Columbus, and that is very reminiscent or similar to Venus Columbi. But the point is, or the goddess, the Babylonian, I believe Babylonian goddess Venus Columbi. But the point is, Christopher Columbus, who, if he did exist, in fact, and he might have actually been based on various different people, still nonetheless was, and at least represents, the rape, murder, enslavement, and other things of, and again, the exploitation and stealing of the land of, and theft from, or of the indigenous people here in the United States and in North America, and also in Latin America and a number of other places. He was not a particularly good man, and that statue still stands, but Pikes is gone. Well, gee, civil rights movement, you're really advancing this, aren't you? Anyways, I want to end this video with a quote by Albert Pike, I believe from Morals and Dogma, where he talks about the true esoteric religion and why I don't only and will not only represent myself to and for you as a humanist, but in fact and indeed what Pike was, a Luciferian. And that is, this we must say to the public, we worship a God. This is true. But to you, I can't think of the name, inspectors general, whatever, we say this only to the other fellow brothers in the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degree. We worship the God that one worships without superstition, and he is our God, and our God's name is Lucifer. And I can't remember the rest of the quote, but it's very interesting. And I'll leave it there, and rest in peace, my brother. At least one God still respects you.